David had always been fascinated by the stars. Being stationed on a remote outpost on the distant planet of Arena gave him a front-row seat to the mysteries of the universe. The planet, with its lush green forests and bright purple sky, felt like something out of a dream. His job was to monitor the local environment, cataloging the planet's wildlife. But David often found himself wandering the forests, lost in thought. It wasn't every day that a human was sent to explore an alien world. One evening, as the twin suns began to set, David ventured deeper into the forest. The air was warm, and the ground beneath his boots was soft with moss. He had been walking for hours when he heard something unusual, a soft rustling, like the whisper of the wind through the trees. But this wasn't the wind. David stopped and turned around, scanning the area. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind a large tree. She was tall, much taller than David, with skin that shimmered like lavender under the fading light. Her hair, long and silver, flowed like liquid moonlight. She had the grace of a dancer, each step light and fluid, almost as if she was gliding across the ground. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, gleamed like two stars. David couldn't help but stare at her in awe. She was unlike any being he had ever seen. She was beautiful? No, more than beautiful. There was something otherworldly about her, as if she didn't belong to this planet at all. David's breath caught in his throat. His heart raced, and he felt something stir deep inside him. Before he could stop himself, the words escaped his lips. "She's so beautiful. I wish she were mine." The words were out before he even realized he had spoken them aloud. His face turned red with embarrassment, but the alien girl didn't seem to react. She stood still for a moment, her eyes fixed on him, almost as if she had heard his thoughts. David froze. How did she hear him? He hadn't even spoken loudly then. The girl took a step forward, and David's heart skipped a beat. She didn't look scared, nor did she seem angry. There was no fear in her gaze, only curiosity. David could hardly believe what was happening. He had read about alien species before, but nothing in those reports had prepared him for this moment. "I can hear your thoughts," she said, her voice calm and smooth, like the sound of water flowing over rocks. "And you have spoken your heart, human." David blinked, trying to process what she was saying. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could she hear his thoughts? Is it possible for an alien species to read minds? He had heard rumors of telepathic races, but he never imagined he'd meet one. I didn't mean to." "Say that out loud," David stammered. Feeling his cheeks grow even warmer, the alien girl tilted her head slightly, her silver hair cascading over her shoulder. "You have nothing to be ashamed of. Your heart speaks louder than your words." She paused for a moment, studying him as if trying to understand something deeper. "But what you feel is not enough." David blinked. "Not enough for what?" "Enough to win my heart," she replied softly, a faint smile on her lips. It wasn't mocking, but rather a knowing smile, one that suggested she knew more about him than he could ever know about her. David felt his heart race again. But this time it wasn't from embarrassment. He wasn't sure why, but something about her words made him feel like he needed to prove himself. He had to show her that he was more than just a simple human who admired her from afar. But how could he? The girl stepped closer, and David instinctively took a small step back. She didn't seem to mind. Instead, she looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and something else. He couldn't place it. "I am Lyra," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. "I am a member of the Clurni, a people whose existence is woven into the fabric of this planet. I have lived here for centuries, in silence, hidden from the world." David's eyes widened. Centuries. She was ancient, far older than him. He could barely wrap his mind around it. She looked so young, so full of life, yet her eyes carried the weight of an eternity. "I didn't expect to meet anyone like you." Lyra continued, "Humans are different from the others I have encountered. You speak plainly, without pretense, and yet you speak of things your kind cannot understand. You are full of contradictions." David wasn't sure how to respond. It felt like he had just been thrown into a world of mysteries that he couldn't even begin to understand. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. I've never seen anything like you before. Lyra's gaze softened, and for the briefest moment David saw something in her eyes, something that resembled tenderness. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. You don't need to say anything, she said quietly. Your heart has already spoken. And with that, Lyra turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving David standing there, alone. His heart still raced, but now it wasn't from embarrassment or awe. It was from the unknown. What was it that Lyra had seen in him? What was it that made her speak to him in such a way? And most of all, why did he feel like he had just encountered something that would change his life forever? David stood there for a long time, staring at the spot where Lyra had vanished. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something bigger, something beyond his understanding. And he was determined to find out what it was. David couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. After their encounter in the forest, his mind raced with questions. Who was she? Did she mean when she said that his heart had spoken? He had always known there was more to the universe than what humans could see. But this was something different. The next day, David returned to the same spot in the forest, hoping to see her again. He wasn't sure what he expected, but he knew he couldn't just leave things the way they had ended. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand her. He walked for hours through the forest, the thick trees and strange plants surrounding him. The air smelled fresh, with hints of wildflowers and something else he couldn't quite place. He had almost given up when, just as the sun began to set, he saw her again. Lyra stood by a large rock, her back turned to him, staring out at the horizon. Her silver hair shimmered in the golden light, and her presence seemed to fill the air. David approached her slowly, not wanting to startle her. Lyra, he called softly. She turned to face him, and for a moment David could only look into her eyes. There was something about the way she carried herself, something calm yet powerful. Her gaze seemed to look right through him, like she could see everything that he was. You returned, she said, her voice as soft as before. But this time, there was a hint of warmth in it. David nodded, trying to find the right words. I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, about my heart speaking. I don't understand. ... Why me? Why did you stop when I spoke? I'm just a human. Lyra's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, her movements fluid and graceful. It's not about being human, David. It's about the sincerity of your feelings. You spoke from your heart, without trying to hide it. Most beings, even those who can speak freely, hide their true feelings. You don't. David felt a strange warmth spread through him. He had always thought of himself as a simple man, someone who didn't have much to offer. But standing in front of Lyra, he began to realize that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about what he had or didn't have. It was about being true to himself. I don't know how to be anything other than myself, David admitted. I never had the chance to hide who I am, and I don't think I ever want to. Lyra studied him for a moment, then nodded. That is why I was drawn to you. You remind me of something I lost long ago, the ability to feel, to truly connect, David. Frowned, you lost something? Lyra's expression became distant, her eyes turning inward as if she were remembering something painful. Long ago, my people taught me to suppress my emotions. We are a race of warriors, and emotions are seen as weaknesses. I was trained to be like them, to be strong, unfeeling. But even though I followed their ways, a part of me never agreed with it. When I met you, David, I realized that perhaps I had been wrong all along. David didn't know what to say. He had no idea what it was like to live with such pressure, to be forced into a life that didn't feel right. All he could do was listen. I never wanted to be like the others, Lyra continued, her voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't know how to be different. Until now. David stepped closer to her, feeling a deep sense of connection. You don't have to be anything you don't want to be. You can choose your own path, Lyra. You're not alone. Lyra looked up at him, and for the first time since they had met, David saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. He felt a warmth spread through his chest as he realized that this was something more than just an encounter. This was a connection. The silence between them stretched, comfortable and full of unspoken understanding. David wasn't sure where this would lead, but he knew one thing for certain. He wanted to be there for her. He wanted to help her find her way, even if it meant facing challenges he couldn't yet imagine. "I've never met anyone like you before," David Lyra said, breaking the silence. "Your words. They've made me question everything I've known for so long. I thought I had to be alone, that my path was set, but now I'm not so sure." David smiled, feeling a surge of warmth. "You don't have to be alone anymore, Lyra. You have me." Lyra's eyes sparkled, but she quickly turned her gaze downward, a hint of uncertainty in her posture. "I don't know if I'm ready for that. I've spent so long being closed off. I don't know how to open up to someone, especially not someone like you." David reached out and gently lifted her chin, guiding her to look at him. "It's okay to be afraid. I don't expect you to have all the answers, but I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." For a long moment, they stood there, just looking at each other, each one silently processing the new bond that had begun to form between them. David could feel the weight of Lyra's emotions, even if she didn't speak them aloud. She was still unsure, still holding on to the past, but something inside him told him that she wasn't as closed off as she thought. "I'll be here," David said again, his voice steady. Lyra took a deep breath, nodding slowly. "I don't know what this means, but ... thank you." David smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't expected. This was just the beginning, but he knew that they were both on the edge of something much bigger than either of them understood. And for the first time, David wasn't afraid of what the future held. David and Lyra spent the next few days together, learning more about each other. They wandered the forests, talking about everything and nothing at all. Lyra would share stories of her people, of their distant home, and David would talk about Earth, the life he had left behind, and the simple joys he had once known. Yet there were still many questions that lingered in David's mind, unanswered and heavy in his thoughts. Why had Lyra come to this planet alone? What was it about her past that made her so guarded? One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the forest, Lyra led David to a quiet clearing near a crystal-clear stream. They sat on a large rock, the sound of the water flowing softly in the background. "David," Lyra began, her voice thoughtful, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I've kept hidden for a long time." David turned toward her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What is it, Lyra?" She hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her words. "I come from a people called the Clurni. We are an ancient race, known for our strength and our ability to control the forces of nature. My people have lived for centuries, and we have always followed a strict code, one that teaches us to suppress our emotions. We're trained to be warriors, to be powerful and unfeeling." David's brow furrowed as he listened.
"But you don't
"Seem like that. You're not unfeeling. You've shown me more emotion than anyone I've met." Lyra looked down at her hands, twisting them together. "That's because I've always been different. Ever since I was young, I felt like I didn't belong. I wasn't like the others. I wanted to be free, to live without the constant weight of expectation. But the Clurni way, it's all I've ever known." David reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. "It sounds like you've had a hard time." Lyra's eyes met his, and for a moment he saw a flicker of something: pain, regret, fear. "It wasn't always easy. I tried to fit in too, be like the others, but I could never silence the part of me that felt. I couldn't ignore the things that made me human." She paused, swallowing hard. "And then one day when I was older, I was chosen to become a leader among my people. They said I had the strength, the potential to guide them into the future. But with that came more responsibility, more control over my emotions, more distance from who I really was." David could see the weight of the past in her eyes, the burden she carried. "So, you left. You came here to escape?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, I came to this planet to find peace, to be away from everything I knew. But even here, I couldn't escape the pull of my people's expectations. They have been searching for me, trying to bring me back, but I don't know if I can go back to that life. I don't know if I can live like that anymore." David was silent for a moment, his thoughts racing. He could sense the deep conflict inside her. She was torn between the past and the person she was becoming. She didn't want to be the warrior her people expected her to be, but she also didn't know how to break free from that world. "You don't have to go back," David said softly. "You don't have to be who they want you to be. You've already shown me that there's more. To you, you have a choice, Lyra." Lyra's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "But what if I fail? What if I disappoint them? I don't know how to live without their approval. I don't know how to live without the weight of their expectations." David took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "You don't have to live for anyone else. You just have to live for yourself. It's your life, and you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be free." For a moment, Lyra didn't speak. The weight of her past seemed to hang in the air between them, but David could see the small flicker of hope in her eyes. He knew that she wasn't ready to let go of her past completely, but he could feel that she was starting to question it, starting to see that there might be another way. "I don't know if I can let go of everything I've known," she said softly. "But maybe, maybe there's something to what you're saying. Maybe there's a way to find peace without losing myself." David smiled, a sense of warmth spreading through him. He didn't have all the answers, but he was certain of one thing. He would help Lyra find her way, no matter what it took. "Take your time," he said. "You don't have to decide right now. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Lyra gave him a small smile, one that felt like a weight lifting from her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt as though she wasn't alone in her struggle. She didn't have to carry the burden of her past by herself. There was someone who cared, someone who saw her for who she truly was. As the evening settled around them, they sat in silence, the gentle sound of the stream filling the air. The stars began to appear in the sky above, each one shining brightly, as if offering their own silent support. Lyra didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had the strength to face it. David and Lyra's connection had only grown stronger as the days passed. They spent countless hours together, walking through the forests, talking, and exploring the strange planet. But even as their bond deepened, David could sense that something was weighing heavily on Lyra's mind. She had become quieter, more distant, and David couldn't shake the feeling that her past was closing in on her. One evening, as the two of them sat beneath the wide branches of an ancient tree, Lyra spoke up, her voice tinged with worry. "David, I need to tell you something important. My people, they're looking for me." David looked at her, a mix of concern and confusion on his face. "What do you mean? I thought you left them behind." Lyra's eyes were dark with fear. "I did, but they won't let me go so easily. The Clurney are a proud people, and they do not tolerate weakness. I am their heir, their chosen leader, and they will do anything to bring me back. They think I am the key to their future, but what they don't understand is that their future isn't one I want to be a part of." David took her hand, sensing the fear in her words. "Lyra, they can't make you go back if you don't want to. You have a choice." She shook her head, her silver hair glinting in the fading light. "It's not that simple. The Clurney are powerful and they do not tolerate defiance. If they find me, they will drag me back whether I want to go or not." David's heart sank as he realized the truth in her words. He knew Lyra's people were not like humans. They were warriors, fierce and unyielding, if they came for her. He didn't know what they would do, but he couldn't imagine Lyra being forced back into a life she didn't want. He wouldn't let it happen. "They won't find you," David said firmly. "I'll help you. We'll run if we have to. You don't have to go back to them." Lyra looked at him, her expression softening. "I wish it were that simple. But they've already found traces of my presence here. They've sent scouts to search for me. If they discover that I'm hiding here, they'll stop at nothing to bring me back. And if they come for me, they'll destroy everything in their path to get to me." David felt a chill run down his spine. The thought of a full-scale battle between Lyra's people and the humans on this peaceful planet was terrifying. He didn't know how he could protect Lyra or stop her people from finding her. But he wasn't about to give up. Then we have to act fast, David said, determination in his voice. We can't wait for them to find us. We need to leave this place before it's too late. Lyra's gaze darkened again, her mind clearly racing. Where would we go? I can't take you to my homeworld, it's too dangerous. I can't. Run forever. My people will track me down eventually. They always do. David squeezed her hand reassuringly. We'll figure it out. We don't have to run. We just need a plan. Lyra looked at him with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. I don't know if I deserve your help. You don't owe me anything. David smiled softly, brushing a lock of silver hair from her face. I owe you more than you know, Lyra. You've changed my life, not letting anything happen to you for the first time. Lyra seemed to let go of some of the weight that had been pressing on her heart. The fear wasn't gone, but the reassurance in David's words seemed to give her a spark of hope. They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of their conversation hanging between them. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. I think I know what we can do, she said, her voice filled with a new sense of resolve. I know someone who can help us. He's not like the others. He's not bound by the Cluny Code. He's a friend, someone I trust. If we can get to him, maybe he can help us escape before they find us. David's eyes widened. Do you think he can really help? Lyra nodded, her expression serious. I hope so. He's the only one I can turn to now. We need to move. Quickly. The longer we stay here, the more likely it is that they'll find us. David stood up, offering her a hand. And let's go. We'll do whatever it takes to get you the help you need. Together, they gathered what little they could carry and set off toward the edge of the forest. The journey would be dangerous, and the path uncertain, but David wasn't afraid. He had come to care for Lyra more than he had ever thought possible. He wasn't going to let her face this alone. As they walked, David's mind raced with questions. Who was this friend of Lyra's? What kind of help could he offer? What would happen when they reached him? He didn't have all the answers, but he knew that he would stand by Lyra no matter what came next. The threat of her people hung over them. But in that moment, David knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let anyone take Lyra away from him. Not now, not ever. The night was quiet as David and Lyra moved through the dense forest, the only sounds being the soft crunch of leaves beneath their feet and the occasional call of distant creatures. The air felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of the danger that followed them. They had been traveling for hours, heading toward the hidden place Lyra had mentioned where her friend could help them. But the deeper they went into the unknown, the more David could feel the fear and uncertainty gnawing at Lyra. She kept her gaze straight ahead, her expression unreadable. David could sense that she was nervous about what lay ahead. She hadn't said much since they left their camp, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. He wished he could take away the worry that clouded her every step. But the truth was, he didn't know what would happen next either. They were walking into unknown territory, and every step felt like it could lead them straight into danger. Lyra, are you okay? David asked gently, slowing his pace to walk beside her. Lyra stopped and turned to face him, her silver eyes meeting his. I'm not sure, she said, her voice soft. I'm hoping this works, but I'm also scared. If we're caught, I don't know what they'll do to us. They'll stop at nothing to get me back. David reached out and touched her arm, offering a reassuring smile. We won't let that happen. We're doing this together. She didn't respond right away, but after a moment she gave him a small nod. I know, I trust you, David, but you should know. My friend, the one I'm taking you to is not someone you would expect. David raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I thought you said he could help. He can, Lyra said. He's ... complicated. He's not like the others. He's not bound by the Cluny Code. But that doesn't mean he's entirely trustworthy. He has his own motivations, his own agenda, and he doesn't do anything for free. David's mind raced as he processed her words. So we might be walking into another trap? Lyra sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. I wouldn't call it a trap, but he's the kind of person who tests people. He'll want to see if we're worth helping. If he decides we aren't, then we're on our own. David nodded slowly. Understanding the danger, Lyra wasn't sure if this friend would help, and even if he did, there was a chance they might have to prove themselves first. It wasn't the kind of situation David had imagined when they first decided to leave the camp. But he wasn't going to back down now. not when Lyra was depending on him. Then we'll prove we're worth it, David said, his voice firm. Lyra smiled at him, a faint but genuine smile. I hope you're right. They continued their journey through the night, the path growing more difficult as they neared the hidden location. The forest became denser, the trees taller and thicker, their branches twisting in strange shapes. The shadows seemed to stretch longer as the moon rose higher in the sky. The place they were heading to felt far away from everything they knew, a place where the rules of the Clurney, the laws of the universe itself, might not apply. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing. In the middle stood a large stone structure, its surface weathered and worn by time. It looked ancient, but there was a strange energy surrounding it, as if it had been untouched by time in a way. David couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as he stared at the mysterious building. This is it, Lyra said, her voice low. My friend lives here. David glanced around, trying to shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. Are you sure this is safe? Lyra nodded, though her expression was tense. As safe as it can be. Stay close. They approached the structure, and as they drew near, the air seemed to hum with a strange energy. There were no guards, no signs of life, yet David couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. When they reached the entrance, Lyra hesitated for a moment before pushing open a heavy door made of stone. Inside, the air was thick with dust, but there was a strange warmth, as if the place had been alive at some point. Lyra stepped forward, calling out into the darkness, Arden, are you here? A soft, echoing voice answered, I'm here. I've been waiting. From the shadows emerged a figure tall, lean, and dressed in dark, flowing clothes. His face was sharp, his eyes piercing, and there was something unsettling about the way he moved. David instinctively took a step closer to Lyra, unsure of what to expect from this person. I see you brought someone with you, Lyra, the man said, his voice smooth but cold. A human, no less. How interesting. Lyra stepped forward, her shoulders squared. Arden, we need your help. My people are looking for me, and if they find me, they'll destroy everything in their path. We have no time to waste. Eyes flicked to David, then back to Lyra. You expect me to help you? For nothing? You know what I require in return? Lyra took a deep breath. I know, and I'm willing to give it. Just ... Help us. Arden's gaze softened, but only slightly. Very well. But first, you must prove that you are worthy of my help. David tensed, his hand instinctively moving to his side. What kind of test was this? He didn't know what to expect, but he was ready for whatever it took. This was their only chance. He would do whatever it took to keep Lyra safe. David stood beside Lyra, watching as Arden stepped closer, his eyes sharp and calculating. The room felt colder now, the walls pressing in with a sense of tension that David couldn't shake. The strange man before them wasn't the kind of person David had imagined when Lyra spoke of him. He was no ally, no friendly face. He was a figure who held power, and power always came with a price. Prove your worth, Arden said, his voice calm, but there was something in it that made David feel uneasy. I won't help you unless I see that you can handle what's coming. You have to show me that you're not just desperate. You have to show me that you're strong. David didn't like the sound of that. He didn't want to prove himself to this man. He just wanted to help Lyra, to keep her safe from her people who were hunting her down. But as much as he wanted to argue, he knew there was no choice. If they didn't do what Arden wanted, they would be right back where they started. Running from the Clurney with nowhere to go, Lyra's eyes met David's, and he saw the same fear in her that he had felt. Ever since they began their journey, she was just as unsure as he was, but together they had to find a way forward. What do we have to do? Lyra asked, her voice steady. Though David could tell she was struggling to keep her composure, Arden didn't answer immediately. He stepped back into the shadows of the room, his movements slow and deliberate. I'll give you a task. Complete it, and I'll help you. Fail, and I'll leave you to your fate. David's heart raced. The uncertainty of it all weighed on him, but he couldn't back down, not when Lyra's life was at stake. Arden's eyes flicked toward David, and for the first time, he spoke directly to him. You may be human, but you've been with her long enough to understand. You'll both need to pass this test together. Only then will I consider aiding you. David's mind raced as he tried to figure out what the test could be. Was it physical? Mental? Or something more dangerous? Arden's voice broke through his thoughts. There is a place deep within the Clurney territory. It is sacred to my people, and it holds great power. I want you to bring me something from that place, something that proves you have the strength to survive in a world like mine. If you can do that, I will help you. If not, well, your journey will end here. Lyra's face paled. That place, it's too dangerous, and no one has ever come back from it. Arden smiled, a cold and calculating smile. That's why it will prove your worth. The Clurney would never let you enter, but you've already crossed their boundaries by running. I will give you the chance. It's the only way. David's heart pounded. They were being asked to vent. You're into enemy territory, into a place that even Lyra feared, to retrieve something that might be the key to their survival. It seemed impossible, but David couldn't back down. He looked at Lyra, his eyes steady. We can do this, David, said, trying to reassure her, though uncertainty lingered in his own voice. We have to. Lyra took a deep breath, her expression hardening with resolve. You're right. We don't have any other choice. Arden nodded slowly, a slight glimmer of approval in his eyes. Good, then go. And remember, this test will show whether you are truly worthy of my help. If you fail, I will not hesitate to walk away. David and Lyra exchanged one final glance. Before they turned and left the building, the journey ahead was uncertain, but they had no choice. They had to find what Arden wanted, no matter the cost. The forest outside the stone building seemed more ominous now, as if the trees themselves were watching their every move. The silence around them was almost suffocating, broken only by the crunch of their feet against the dry leaves. They walked in silence for a long time, the weight of their task heavy in the air. David's thoughts raced. What could Arden possibly want from the Clurney's sacred place? Why was this test so important? He didn't have the answers, but the urgency of their situation left no room for doubt. They couldn't afford to fail. I'm scared, David, Lyra said suddenly, her voice quiet, but it carried the weight of her fear. What if we don't make it back? What if this is the end? David stopped walking and turned to face her. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty. For the first time since they began this journey, he saw the vulnerability beneath her strong exterior. He reached out, taking her hands in his. We'll make it. We've come this far. We faced danger together before, and we'll do it again. We're stronger than we think, Lyra, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect each other. Lyra's lips quivered slightly as she nodded. You're right. We've made it through worse. Together. David gave her a reassuring smile, but deep down, he knew this was different. This was no simple task. Clurney's sacred place was a place of great danger, a place where no one dared to go. But they had no other option. If they wanted Arden's help, they had to prove themselves. And proving themselves meant surviving the trials ahead. The night was still and dark, but David felt a surge of determination fill him. He wasn't going to let Lyra face this alone. He would face whatever came next, together. The journey was just beginning, but David knew that no matter how impossible it seemed, he would keep moving forward because that was the only way to protect the woman he had come to care for more than he had ever imagined. David and Lyra journeyed through the night, their footsteps quick and determined. The forest around them grew darker, the shadows deeper as they moved further from the safety of the stone building. Their goal was clear. They had to reach the sacred place of the Clurney, retrieve whatever Arden wanted, and prove they were worthy of his help. But the closer they got to the heart of the Clurney's territory, the more dangerous the world seemed. The trees were taller here, their bark dark and twisted, their branches reaching out like fingers. The air was thick, filled with the smell of damp earth and the distant sound of creatures moving unseen in the darkness. David couldn't help but feel a sense of dread settle over him. He had been in many dangerous situations before, but this felt different. The stakes were higher. The Clurney were ruthless, and if they were caught, There would be no second chance. "We're getting close," Lyra said softly, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. She had been quiet for most of the journey, her mind focused. On the task ahead, David could sense the tension in her shoulders, the weight of her past pressing down on her. She was a warrior by birth, but this was a different kind of battle. It wasn't about strength or skill, it was about surviving a world that had never allowed her to truly be herself. David kept his pace steady, keeping a close eye on their surroundings. The path ahead was winding and uncertain, but he didn't want to stop. Not now. Not when they were so close to their goal. "We'll make it," David said, trying to sound confident. Even though he was just as scared as Lyra, "We've come this far, and we're not going to let anything stop us." Lyra gave him a small, grateful smile, but her eyes betrayed the worry that still lingered. "I hope you're right," she whispered. "This place, it's not just dangerous, it's cursed. The Clurney never let anyone leave. No one who has ever entered has come back unchanged. Some never come back at all." David stopped walking, turning to face her. The concern in her voice made his heart tighten, but he refused to let fear take hold. "I won't let anything happen to you, Lyra. I'll get you out of here. We'll face this together." She looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. There was something about her gaze that made David's chest tighten. No, she was more than just a warrior, more than just someone who had been trained to follow orders. It was someone who had been forced to live a life she never wanted. Someone who was now learning what it meant to be free. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You've given me hope. Something I haven't had in a long time." David reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "You don't need to thank me. I'm here for you, and I'm not going anywhere." They continued on in silence, the journey ahead uncertain, but the bond between them stronger than ever. It wasn't just about surviving the test that Arden had set for them anymore. It was about more than just getting help. It was about finding a way for Lyra to finally be free of the life she had been forced to live. As they neared the entrance to the Clurney sacred place, the air grew colder. The trees were more twisted, their bark blackened, their roots spreading like veins across the ground. There was a sense of ancient power here, an energy that hummed in the very earth beneath their feet. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional flutter of wings or the rustling of the wind. David felt a chill run down his spine. This was where the test began. This was where they would either prove themselves or fail. Lyra stepped forward, her hand reaching out to touch the stone entrance. The air seemed to shift, as if the very earth was aware of their presence. "This is it," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Inside is where the Clurney keep their most sacred relics. Only the worthy can enter. And only the worthy can survive." David nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "Or worthy." Lyra glanced at him, a flicker of doubt in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she pushed the heavy stone door open. The darkness inside seemed to swallow them whole. The interior was a vast, dimly lit chamber, its walls covered in ancient symbols and carvings. The air was thick with dust, and the faint glow of glowing crystals embedded in the stone cast an eerie light across the room. At the far end, a pedestal stood, on which lay a single object covered by a cloth. Lyra stepped forward, her steps hesitant. "This is it. This is what we came for." David's heart raced as he followed her. They had made it this far, but the hardest part was still ahead. Lyra reached out, her fingers brushing the cloth, but as she touched it, a deep rumble echoed. Through the chamber, the ground trembled, and the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening crash. David spun around, his heart pounding. Something was wrong. They were trapped. Lyra's face was pale as she turned to him. "It's a test," she said, her voice trembling. "We're not supposed to just take the relic. We have to prove we're worthy by surviving what comes next." Before David could respond, the ground beneath them began to shift. The room seemed to come alive, the walls closing in around them. Strange creatures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing in the dim light. David stepped in front of Lyra, his heart racing. This was it, the final test. They had to survive, or they would never leave this place. "We can do this," David said, his voice firm, though his fear threatened to break through. "We'll face this together." Lyra nodded, her eyes steady. Together. And with that, they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever the Clurney had in store for them.